Welcome back for another Monday with Micah. I have a new visitor here. Her name is Susan Moore, and we have just met today, y'all. We have just met for the first time, and these ladies continue to be gracious to me and allow me to not only press play and video, but come into their home and have a discussion. But how did we find each other? The Widow Walk is going to be hosting our first annual Walk of Love gathering February 21st at the Hubs Vine in Franklin, Virginia. If you have not registered and you know a widow or widower, we would love for you to let them know about it. Well, Susan found out about it and she called me to register. And then I started asking her some questions and I said, where have you been? And why am I just finding you now? And so I said, I want to come and meet with you because you are a wealth of knowledge and I am a young widow and I need to glean from other widows that are walking with widows. And she starts telling me about some stories, how she is walking with widows and helping them in the first year, especially. And as soon as she kind of helps one, another one finds her. And I said, these are the kind of women, widow warriors, I like to call this. We may put that as the title, Widow Warrior Stories, because this lady is out there helping widows war through some things in the difficulties of that first year and beyond that point. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Susan and just let her start the conversation. You can share how long it's been since your husband passed, anything about your background you would like to share to the listeners here today.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And thank you for the Widow's Walk.
Yes, thank you.
Sounds like it's a wonderful opportunity for people to get together and share and heal. Mm-hmm. My husband passed away. You might as well kill it. My husband passed away in October of 22. And it's been difficult. But what's come about in all of this is several people I know, unfortunately, have lost their husbands. Yeah. More husbands passed than wives, unfortunately, at this age. And so I've been able to give them a trigger and so a little bit of helpful hints in what I've had to do, what I needed to do, and what they could do. What has occurred to me is as people I know have lost their husbands, in my case, have contacted me and said, Sue, what do I do? I don't know the first step. I don't know what to do. In one case, the police officers were still standing in her front yard after they'd come to tell her that her husband had been killed in an accident. And, my response is, put on your jeans, put on a pot of coffee, I'm on the way. Wow. And we just talk, which is more important than anything else, just being there. Yep. Being the sounding board, listening, let them express what they're feeling. And most of the time at that point, right off the bat, you don't know what you're feeling, you're not feeling, you're numb. And you have a whole lot of questions. And to be able to talk to someone who's been through it helps a great deal. There are a lot of helpful hints that I think, my estimation, needs to be shared with people who have never been through a major loss such as this. Number one, don't make any major decisions for 12 months. You think you know what you're doing. You think you know what's going on around you. You think you are thinking clearly, and you're not. You're in a fog for a minimum of 12 months. Some people are in a fog for 2 or 3 years. There's no right or wrong. Everybody's different. Everybody goes through the mourning process differently. They say there's 5 steps to the mourning process. You might skip step 1, goes right straight to 3. You might backtrack. It might take you years to get through the process. Everybody's different, and that's okay. Everybody's coming into it with different experiences. and everybody's going to exit with different experiences. So you just have to let people be where they are and help them hopefully not make some major mistakes that many people can make. There are so many intricate things that happen in just paying the bills, which bills you have to pay, which bills you do not have to pay and do not want to pay, and knowing which ones they are.
Can you speak into that a little bit? We had an earlier conversation, and she brought some things to light that I was not aware of when it came to
Credit cards.
Credit cards. It came to automobile notes and things of that nature. Can you just share some wisdom that you find from the financial side of it?
From the financial side, obviously you have to pay your utility bills where you're living, mortgages, things like that. If your spouse had a credit card with only their name on it, even though you might have been an authorized user, but it was an account that they filled out the paperwork for, you never signed a signature card, you're not liable for it, you don't have to pay it. They could have tens of thousands of dollars on a card, and many do.
Yes.
This one lady I know, her husband died, he was over $250,000 in debt between credit cards, automobiles, and vehicles that he had purchased.
And she was not
liable for one penny of that.
Wow.
The companies will call you repeatedly. They'll send you bills repeatedly.
Threaten.
They'll threaten you. They'll say, well, we're coming after your house. And our response was, come get it. Try. Because they know they can't, but they're going to try to scare you. Fear is a very big motivator, unfortunately, and people will use it
and to target widows.
To target you. And I was very fortunate. I knew already, but when I called the first credit card company from my husband's passing, when I called one of his credit cards, the very first one, the woman on the other side was very kind. And first thing she said was, I'm so sorry for your loss. Do not pay this bill.
Wow.
You are not liable for this bill. You will receive bills for up to 6 months.
Wow.
You may receive more phone calls from other people, but I'm telling you legally, you are not liable for this bill because this was a single person account. So, and as you, again, as lessons learned as you go on in life, and you open credit cards, if you were to get married again, keep your finances separate.
Wow.
Keep your finances separate. You can have a joint checking account if you need that or want that. But you, as far as loans are concerned, car loans, even house loans, things like that, you're not liable.
Wow.
Unless if you want to keep the property, obviously you've got to keep up the taxes and you've got to pay off or pay down the note, something like that. I have one individual whose husband had just purchased an automobile and a motorcycle, and it only made 1 or 2 payments on either one. Neither one she needed or wanted, and she just called him and said, hey, come get it. Come get them. I'm not making any more payments. I don't need these vehicles. I don't want these vehicles.
Wow.
And you're not liable. So just know that if you didn't sign, if you're not a co-signer, you're not liable. But they'll try to scare you and tell you that you are. And again, no major buying, selling, moving things in the first 12 months unless you absolutely have to. And make sure that you have others who can help advise you as to what to do and what not to do and when to do it. Right. If it's you can't afford the place that you're in,
that's right.
You can't afford to stay where you are. If it's too much to take care of, then downsizing is certainly a smart thing to do.
Yes.
But don't make a move out of fear.
Right.
And don't make a move out of haste.
And don't stay out of fear.
And don't stay out of fear.
Right.
Don't stay out of the sense of obligation.
Right.
That, my wife or my husband loved this place.
Yes.
And
because homes can become a burden.
Homes are a very, very big burden. And your spouse did not want you to have a
No,
burden.
they did not. No,
They
did
planned to share that burden with you. But don't stay there and suffer through it,
right.
because obviously they would want you happy.
Right.
So if it's something that you need to do, make sure you get some good advice. And you have someone to walk through that journey with you, and picking out your next place. Thinking about all the things that need to be thought about, because you're not thinking clearly, you're not going to think clearly. If you haven't handled the bills in the past, if you haven't handled the accounts in the past,
go to the bank.
Watch the mail. Be very, very observant of the mail that comes in. You'll learn where a lot of things are through that. You could even pull. I've had people say, "Well, I don't even know how much, where we have CDs or where we have IRA."
Right.
Pull last year's
Tax
returns.
Yes.
Find out, and you can contact different organizations, different financial organizations that you might be associated with. Eventually, they're going to send you a letter.
Yes, they are.
Go through a file cabinet if you have a file cabinet at home, or if your spouse had a file cabinet where they kept things. Go through that and go through those papers and find things that you need.
Have you walked with widows or widowers where going through the files evoked emotions?
It'll always evoke emotions. And that's good. Get them up, get them out, deal with them. You'll be dealing with them for years, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just life. It's just the way it is. You're going to deal with emotions all your life, and that's okay. But you'll discover things that you didn't know were going on. Some good, some bad. But things that you don't agree with, that's okay. It's all water under the bridge, and it's irrelevant at this point. At this point, it's trying just to get your affairs straight and move forward.
Yes, to help you find your new start and to build a new foundation.
Right. And it's going to be, it may be years before you do that. And that's okay. Everybody has to move at their own pace. And you'll get a lot of suggestions. You should do this. You should do that. You need to do this. You need to do that. What you need to do is listen. Maybe write it down. Go back and look at it. Some of these things you may need to do, some you may not need to do. You don't need to run out and change the title on your house right away. You don't need to run out and change the titles. You got months and months and months to do that. Some people never change the title on their house or their car until they get ready to sell it. And if you've got both your names are on your house, both your names are on your vehicles, things like that, you can leave it that way if you like. You can change it. It's okay to change it. Your insurances, things like that. These are people you'll need to notify. Many of them will need copies of death certificates.
That's right.
Financial institutions usually require an original, but they'll return them.
And you can ask your funeral director for like 10 copies. You need more than 1 or 2. And if they need originals, the funeral director can get that for you. And they will give you some, but they typically don't give you that many unless you ask for it. And that's a little tip that I learned to simplify that.
Yeah, and typically it's only the financial institutions that are going to need the originals. You will discover, and you may, depend on what state you live in, the laws are different. You have to find out how it is in your state, and a lot of times you can Google it if you're on the internet, find out. But in titling such as your house, you can do this with anything except for jewelry and vehicles. But financial accounts, investment accounts, and real estate particularly, if you're going to retitle those, say, in your own name, if you have someone you already know you're going to leave your real estate to, or leave your investment accounts to, unless there's a beneficiary listed already, then that covers it. But real estate, you can title your real estate in your name alone, which is a safe way to do it. That way you don't need anybody's permission to buy, sell, or trade, whatever you want to do. But you can title it in your name TOD, which means transfer on death, to
a child,
a sister, a brother, or somebody like that. What that does, that totally avoids probate for them.
Awesome.
It totally avoids getting caught up in a will, getting caught up in a court. If there's people who contest a will,
right,
or sometimes, unfortunately, the green meanies will always come out, and people that you've never suspected it, and that's real unfortunate. But if someone, and it happens unfortunately every day, someone comes up and says, well, gee, I have this will, and they signed it last week or 2 weeks ago, and you don't know anything about it, but it is dated newer than yours, so I get everything, you get nothing. People will come up with bogus pieces of paper. A TOD is something you do in advance of death. You go to the clerk of courts, and you have the title changed. You say, I would do it to my name, TOD to my son. You pay $20-some or something to do it, depending on your state, and as long as your state does it, Virginia does it. And at that point, you get a receipt. It has to be done before you die. You get a receipt back that says TOD at death to this individual. It automatically becomes his the day I die. The minute I die, it's already his, even though it's still titled in my name. Anybody can come up with any piece of paper and any will,
and it won't override.
It doesn't override it.
Right.
Nothing overrides a TOD. So if you're concerned about arguments, or even if you're not concerned about arguments, but you really want to make sure somebody gets it, because the people that you least suspect are going to
pursue
be difficult and try to maybe get more than you had left to them, or if there's anything to leave to them, they're the ones who are going to come out first and ugliest. So if you can do something like, you've got beneficiaries on life insurance policies, if you've got a financial account, like a checking account that nobody else is on, and that's okay, you can TOD that account and investment accounts and all the rest to a particular individual. And again, it avoids probate, which avoids a lot of waiting. It avoids taxes. It avoids an awful lot of that stuff. Also, and if you're a new widower or widow and you're revising your will, you're revising your emergency contact information with all your people, all your doctors, and all this kind of business, you want to make sure, I'd highly recommend you're considering putting a no contest clause in your will. A no contest clause is just a simple couple of lines you write in your will that says, if anyone contests any part of this will, they will be considered to have predeceased me, and they get absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And whatever's in the will goes on to
the others,
the rest of the beneficiaries. So if you're concerned, you might have 3 or 4 kids, or 2 or 3 kids, or 6 or 8 kids. If you don't want them arguing and bickering over what's going on, and believe me, they will. Even though they've gotten along beautifully all their lives, this changes the whole ball game. This changes the whole ball game.
Yes, it does.
Put a no contest clause in your will.
Wow.
And that ends all conversation.
Yep.
Because I had that situation myself with my husband's will, and my parents had taught me this years ago. They had one in their will. I've always had one in mine. My husband insisted on adding one to his will, and thankfully that ended the conversation with some people immediately. It was all over with because they can't contest it in any way, shape, or form.
And you think about this, folks. These are things that are happening after they pass. And you are now having to face daily tasks in that first year can be very exhausting. And that's with nothing changing, when everything has changed. And so to add on top of that tension about things, of monetary things, whatever that may be, it complicates and it really almost pushes the grieving process down the road. It kicks it down the road because you have all these right now pressing things, and she's giving so much wisdom here about all of it may feel like it needs to be done yesterday. It does not. You can pace what your when you do certain things. You may feel all of it needs to be done right away. I've heard so many widows say there's so much paperwork. And what happens in this brain fog thing that she's talking about, the more decisions the more decisions we have to make and quick choices, that this overwhelm can start to happen, and anxiety, paranoia, fear of making the wrong decision, people not sleeping at night starts to happen because they realize the magnitude of what they're having to carry now.
It's an overwhelming situation to begin with. At its best, it's overwhelming. You don't have to let it overwhelm you. Mm-hmm. Get a book, get a notebook, and when you have a thought,
write it down.
Things to do.
Yep.
And have a to-do list, just like you have a to-do list of things that have to be done around the house. And make yourself a to-do list and a to-call list.
Yes.
And just keep adding people to it. And you won't follow it in any particular order necessarily. You won't think of it in the order maybe in which it needs to be done.
That's right.
But as you do it, you can put a little line, a small line through it. Don't black it out, because then you can look back later and say, okay, yeah, I did that. I did call that company. And always, 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 when you call companies,
get their name.
When you call different entities, write down the day, the name of who you talked to, or their identification number. Yes. In some cases, they won't give you a name. They'll give you an ID number, employee number or something. Yeah, but you want the time, the date, who you spoke to, and what they told you, because you're not going to remember, number one.
And it could be challenged, number two.
And it will be challenged. It will be challenged at some point in time by someone else in their organization. Well, they shouldn't have told you that. Well, they did. So now you have to deal with that. Mm-hmm. Don't let anybody rush you. Right. Because everybody's going to be full of an awful lot of advice, and they're trying to be very helpful. And a lot of it is very helpful stuff that you need to write down and think about. Don't let anybody rush you. Move at your pace. Right. You do have to move on certain items. Yes. But you don't have to run a marathon. You can take it at your own pace, and if you can write down your thoughts and write down a list of things to do, then that takes a lot of stress off of you. And that's what it's about right now, is take the stress off you. You've got to
de-escalate the stress.
You've got an undue amount of stress to start with. But you can help yourself a lot by just making written suggestions, write things down. That way you can go back and process them. Your brain will process them overnight while you're sleeping. You'll lose part of the thought. Yes. And it will reorganize your thought. If you have a thought or something you need to do, if you've had a conversation with someone that's critical, write it down before you go to sleep. Because when you wake up, it won't be the same conversation that you remember, because your brain reassimilates things overnight. And it won't come back out the same. But take your time is one of the things I would really significantly advise you to take your time. Don't rush. Make a list. Make many lists. Get a notebook where you're not going to have individual papers. Sticky notes don't work. No. They're all over the place. They get lost. That's right. Have a spiral or a bound notebook. Yes. And make your list. And keep adding to it, and keep referring to it.
That's good.
And things like that will happen. If you've got a financial advisor, get in touch with your financial advisor. Make sure they know what's going on, and make an appointment to talk to them in 30 days in 60 days, or whenever it's appropriate. And don't be afraid to change that appointment if the time comes up.
And you don't feel up to it.
And you're not up to it. You're not in a place to deal with it. Change it. It's your world.
That's right.
It's their work for you.
That's right.
You don't work for them.
That's right.
Talk to these people that you need to talk to get things lined up. Your CPA.
Yep.
If you've got a CPA, make sure that's done and taken care of. But write your notes down and keep copious notes, because there's going to be copious things to write down.
And there's going to be pockets in your day where you have clarity. But do not expect it to be a 24-hour day of clarity. So that is why this handbook, this notebook is so critical, because the wisdom is within. And it takes digesting this information for it to really incubate and compute and come back out with what you need. And I have found that when I ask so many other people their opinion, that also creates an overwhelm. And so I would just give a word of wisdom to limit the amount of, and they're going to come, but you can say thank you for the information, but do not feel obligated to adhere to everything, every whim of doctrine that they're giving you. And rest is so critical to digesting this information. But what I will communicate as well, that grief, the physiological component of grief has an angst to it, that we need to handle this right now. The fight or flight that happens when you walk through trauma, and a loss of any loss has a traumatic component to it, that you think you're ready to handle it, and ultimately we are.
And some of those moments of clarity that you have through the day, you're not as clear as you think you are. If you have a moment of clarity, write down your thoughts and read them 3 or 4 times in the next 3 or 4 days before you decide whether or not that was really the thing to do. Because what makes perfect sense right now won't make any sense tomorrow, and you'll realize, well, that's true, but before I do that step, I have to do these 3 steps.
Thank you.
So if you have a moment, and most people feel very clear. Most people are going to,
until they look back.
You're either going to feel totally out of it, or totally clear. And most of the time, you're not quite as clear as you think you are. So, and you're not thinking of all the little things that might affect, that decision might affect. So write them down, date them, time them, whatever you want to do, and go back and look at them again several times, and talk about them possibly with somebody you trust, somebody that you know, somebody who knows you well.
Did you delegate any things out for others to do in your behalf?
Not that I can recall.
Okay.
Not that I can recall.
I didn't really delegate things out either. I did have, for certain instances, someone come with me to make sure that what I was hearing was what they were hearing, and cross-examine the information, because it helped me trust the process a little bit more than sometimes when you go in, it's too much information, and I wasn't really able to absorb it all.
It's no different than going to a medical appointment and having 2 sets of ears in there, because the doctor can say one thing and your mind goes to focus on that. And you don't hear the next 5 minutes of what it is they're saying. And it doesn't compute.
Yes.
Or you're processing it. So if you're going to an attorney, or you're going to a CPA, something like that, if there's someone that you trust to take with you, that's fine. It's okay to voice record it too. Use your phone. Voice record it. And tell them, I'm recording this
so I can listen
so
back.
that I can listen back later and make sense of it, because I might come up with some more questions I have, and none of them object to that. If they object to that, then there's possibly another problem that you're not aware of.
And something that the pacing of this, I feel like, is so critical in this episode. I know that when I met with my financial advisor, I had to make decisions about future life insurance policies, term policies, whole life policies. And we had done a term policy. I think that's the better way to go than whole life. That has been pitched differently. Again, this is an individual process. There's benefits to both. There's more financial deposits that have to be made in whole life than in term. And we really don't know. But what I'm saying is there's some big decisions that have costly consequences. And they're asking these sometimes in the first 60 days of your husband passing. And you do not have to make the decision then. You don't even have to make a decision a year from then.
Take your time, ask your questions, ask them 2 or 3 times if you need to, and ask different people. When you're looking at things such as life insurance policy, the term, people who sell term life insurance are going to tell you there's nothing but term. If they sell whole life, they're going to tell you there's nothing but whole life. Bottom line is typically whatever they benefit from the most in selling your policy. Unfortunately, that's just the way
the nature of
people
sales
are.
Yes.
But
again,
make notes. You have to do your own research on many
informed.
different things. You have to educate yourself on a lot slowly.
Yes.
And use people that you trust. Use the internet if you can. Remember that Google is the bathroom wall of the internet. Anybody can put anything they want to on Google.
Google's not God. Google's not facts.
Google is very, very few facts. Google research is a good place to go. And there are some other search engines, but look it up. Read the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then you have to go with what makes sense to you
and your gut.
What resonates with you and what fits your situation.
That's right.
And everybody's going to be different.
That's
There's no cookie cutter to this.
No,
there's no cut and dry to this. And whatever your journey is okay. That's your journey.
That's right.
And that's the way it should be. But you get to call that. You should call that.
You call the shots.
You
call the shots.
Don't let people intimidate you into doing something that you're not comfortable doing, or shame you into it.
Thank you.
Or make you feel like you're stupid if you don't do this. You're crazy if you don't do that.
And that's a common phrase.
All I would say is, I'm stupid, I'm crazy. That's just me.
Yeah.
But you have to do this. I rode motorcycles for years and years, and we had a saying that you have to ride your own ride. You don't have to ride fast to keep up with people. You don't have to go real slow with you have to ride your own ride. You've got to take this at your own pace too.
That's right.
And if everybody else is turning left, if turning right makes sense to you and feels right to you, then it's okay to turn right.
That's right.
You might go down that road a little ways and you might turn around and come back.
That's right.
But you've got to do what feels right for you.
This is you building confidence.
It's you rebuilding yourself, because you will rebuild yourself. You're entering into a whole new world. You're building a whole new world.
Wow.
And you're the architect, not them. They don't have to live with your decisions. You do. So don't let someone else be the architect of your world.
Yeah.
Gather all the information that you can, and then sit back and make your decisions as slow as you want to.
Yep.
In whatever order you want to. But they are your decisions.
That's right.
And if it's right for you, then it's right.
That's right.
It doesn't have to be right for anybody else. And it might be completely opposite of what your best friend has done.
That's right.
Or what your parents are telling you to do.
That's right.
Or what your pastor is telling you to do.
That's right.
You have to take in all the information and just make a and that way you can make a good,
An
knowledgeable
informed
decision.
That's right.
Yeah.
What do you think are, and we're getting through, thank you. I mean, this is so, man, this is a topic that I have not had this deeply with any of the widows in conversations in this aspect of it. But what would you say are 3 of the best decisions that you made?
Number 1, don't make any big decisions in the first year or 2 years. It's been 2 years for me now, over 2. That's okay. Some decisions I'm still not ready to make. I still don't feel like I need to make them. So that's okay. So, and talk to many people, listen to many people, just write down everything and contemplate it. Think about it. Don't rush. And don't feel like everybody will tell you, as we started out saying, there are 5 in every
Stages of grief.
5 stages of grief, and in every psychology book and every psychiatrist and every doctor you talk to, there's 5 stages. You're going to do this one, then you're going to do this one. They don't know what they're talking about. Bless their hearts, they haven't been there.
No, they haven't.
And everybody's journey is different. And just realize that whatever your journey is, it's okay. It's good. That's fine.
And we don't need to guilt ourselves, because I hear this again. You haven't said it this way, but I should be further along than this.
Right. I heard an expression years ago that I've lived with all my life that says, give the gift that lasts forever. Give guilt. Don't let anybody else give you guilt.
Wow.
Don't let anybody else give you their guilt or their insecurities.
Yes, it's more that they're projecting insecurity onto you,
and they don't realize it. They don't know it. They don't know
You're
it.
right.
They're very well-meaning. They're telling you what they've heard.
The fears that they have.
They're sharing their fears with
Yes.
you. Don't take those home with you. You've got enough of your own.
Yes.
But hey, take it at your own pace. Take it slow. And thank everybody for their input, and you can consider it all. Write it down if you'd like to write it down, or write it down, and when they walk out the door, throw that piece of paper in the trash.
We say eat the meat and spit out the bones. You know, we eat the meat, spit out the bones.
Yeah, but what's meat to me may not be meat to you. And that's okay. Whoever you are, wherever you are, that's okay. That's where you're supposed to be. God's going to take care of you.
That's right. That's right. Wow.
It's not our plan. It's not our time.
Wow.
It's God's plan. It's God's time. We just have to go along with the program.
That's it.
And He will lay it out in front of you as it comes along. And there's going to be bumps in the road.
Yes.
It's not going to be all that easy at all.
No.
There's going to be bumps in the road, but that's okay.
That's
because we've been across bumps all our lives.
That's it.
There's potholes, there's speed bumps.
We live on the country roads out here.
And there's brick walls, and that's okay. Because there's nothing you can't do without God, so you're good to go.
He gave me a picture one time in my mind. And I live in a brick house, and we're in a brick house, and so I see a lot of brick and mortar around. And I realized that when you're talking about this, building this new path, if you want to call it, that I hear this term a lot. I feel stuck. You know, you feel overwhelmed. You don't really want to make the wrong decision. There's so many decisions. You don't really trust yourself to make the decision because you haven't had to make these decisions before. And so I started to see this wall, this invisible wall of limited beliefs. And this isn't just about loss, folks. This is about our life and the stories that we've been told, the things that we grew up under in our parents' lives, in our churches, all this culmination of this information that we say is facts, these beliefs that we are now standing on, it kind of all gets ripped to shreds when loss happens sometimes. And I started to see these bricks. And how am I going to get over this threshold? And what I saw was that I had to start pulling one by one these thoughts that I'm going to call limited beliefs about ourselves, about others, about the system, about the medical system, about the financial system, the education system, The grocery store, what we think about all these things. What do we think about living in a house by ourselves? All these questions. And you take one and you look at it. Maybe you write it down. What do I think about that? What do I think about living by myself? What do I think about making a decision to buy a new car? What do I think about? And you put them down. And then all of a sudden, some people do pros and cons. You do some pros and cons list. However your brain works, if you need to take a walk to process, to metabolize the information, get outside and walk with those questions. If you're better doing pros and cons lists, then do those pros and cons lists. If you're better verbally processing it with a friend that you can trust to bounce things off of, where you know that they're not going to insert their opinion, but they're going to hear it and say, I actually think you sound very clearly in what you're saying. And what starts to happen? There's cracks now in this wall. And as those spaces start coming out, you're now creating a doorway to knock through those limited beliefs into your new future.
And we all have a belief system. And our belief systems have grown as we've grown. It started when we were babies.
Yep.
And our belief systems are built by what mommy and daddy told us, what our teachers told us, what other people have told us about ourselves.
That's it.
Their opinions about ourselves. And we've developed these belief systems, and they've all been developed with outside influences.
That's right.
Good and bad.
That's right.
And you have to remember that it's all a belief system, and the acronym for belief system is BS. and it can all be changed.
Yes.
It needs to be
reevaluated.
It needs to be evaluated by you. Everything your parents told you, don't let me shake your world. Everything your parents told you is not
Isn't
right.
true.
It's not true. It's not right.
Yeah.
It's what they thought was right, or what
At the
they
time.
thought was the right thing to tell you, maybe.
Yes.
And what other people have said to you, you're strong, you're pretty, you're ugly, you're not good enough, you're too heavy, you're too thin, you're this, you're that. That is their opinion.
That's right.
And opinions are like other parts of our body too, but we won't get there.
Yes.
Belief system, a belief system that we have built over the years is just a belief system.
That's right.
It is just BS. And you can change that belief system.
That's it.
Your whole world just changed.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Okay.
That's God's plan. And you're headed in the direction that He needs you headed in. It might be like we're doing here, and like Mike is doing here, to reach out and touch others.
That's right.
To reach out and touch others along their journey.
Yes.
You might talk to 50 people. You might only help one. That's fine. That's
Yes, it
great.
is.
That
That's it.
one person needed you.
Yes.
You might talk for 2 hours, and it might only be one sentence that you made that made any sense.
That impacted
but
the
if
heart.
that impacted someone
Yeah.
in a positive way,
That's right.
then that's what you were meant to do. So just realize what you believe today doesn't have to be what you believe tomorrow.
That's right.
It's
And
not,
you can
it's not-
change.
it's not written in concrete.
That's it.
Everything is changing every day. The world's changing every day, and nobody can change.
Really control that.
Nobody can dispute that
That's
now
right.
either. But it's okay for you to change, and you're going to change.
Yes.
You're going to become a new you.
That's it.
You might go back in some ways to being the you that
You
you
used to
were
be.
before you met
were
your
married.
spouse.
That's right.
Before you had this life. You might go back to that person. You might go back and look for that person. That person's probably not going to be there because that person has evolved and has
That's right.
changed. But it might be some form of
Yes.
that person that you've evolved into. And you might go completely in a totally
Other
different
direction.
direction
That's
that
right.
you've never dreamt of in your life. But if that's where you're drawn to
Go for it.
then maybe that's what the plan is for you to
All
do
along.
to help. And everything that you've been through from beginning to now has prepared you for that.
That's right.
All your experiences, good and bad, they've always said, you've always heard. You never learn from the good experiences and from your successes. You learn from your failures.
Yeah.
And you learn from your bad experiences, and you learn from your heartaches.
Yeah.
That's where the learning comes in. And you've learned a lot since you were that person before.
That's it.
So you're going to be an evolved person.
That's right.
And it may be years before you figure out who that person is and
Yep.
what that person's supposed to be.
Yep.
But that's okay. But in the meantime, take care of yourself.
Yourself.
Primarily.
That's it.
It's okay to be selfish.
Yes,
right
please.
now.
It's not actually selfish.
Right now, right? No,
it feels selfish.
It feels selfish, basically, based on what you've been before.
That's right.
But it's okay to put yourself first at the moment.
Yes, you need
You have to put yourself first. You have to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
That's right.
You can't help anybody else. So it's okay to say no. I don't feel like going out tonight to meet the girls or meet the guys, or
and don't feel you're going to lose. Some friendships don't last, actually, from some of those no's. But
a lot of friendships will change. An awful lot of
Yes.
friendships will change, and that's okay. People come into your life for a reason,
Yep.
and when that reason has been fulfilled, they go
Move
on
on.
and they make room for the next person
That's
to
right.
come into life. And you're the same way. You're in and out of people's lives, and you leave an impression, you make an impact, and then you move on to the next one, and that's okay.
That's
the
right.
fact that you don't go to the same New Year's Eve parties you've been going to for 10 or 15 years or 4 or 5 years
That's
or
a
whatever,
good thing.
that's okay.
yes,
That's
that can
okay.
be good.
So let yourself be you.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of you. Say no when you feel like saying no. I don't want to do that. I don't
So
feel
good.
like doing that.
So good.
And if you feel like going out, everybody's different. The day my mother died and we went and planned her service, we came home that night, and behind my house, I was the social director for my neighborhood. I had a great big pool party planned and a band and everything else at the pool in our neighborhood behind my house. We got home from the funeral home. We knew my mother was passing, and we drove out of town. We planned her service. We came home, and I'm sitting there in my family room listening to my neighbors playing Jimmy Buffett and some beach music and different stuff, and everybody's at the pool, and I could hear the music from the distance, and I just looked at my family and said, let's get our bathing suits on. We're going to go wash this off. And we went to the party that night, and we jumped in the pool. And we talked to people, and they say, oh, how's your mom doing? Oh, she passed this morning. But that's okay, because she's in a better place. And that's how I reacted to that one.
Wow.
Other people probably thought I was a horrible person for being there.
What are you partying for?
I can't help that. That's their journey. That's what they
Yes.
have to do. I
That's
had
right.
to do what was right for my head at that time, at that moment. You may feel like you can't go out with that group anymore. You don't feel comfortable going out, even if it's just a group that you've been going out with on your own for years. You might feel like, the girls are all going to the beach this weekend. We do this every year. I don't feel like it this year. I'm not, my head's not in the right place. I just don't feel like it. It's okay to say no.
That's right.
Just take care of yourself.
Yes.
Take it slow. Write it down. And know that wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. And it's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. You're not behind. You're not behind. And that's really the beautiful part of this. And, for me, when my husband passed, I had to kind of get his stuff out of the room quickly. I know other women, 3 years later, they haven't moved anything. And there is a lot of judgment inside this in how we respond and how quickly we grieve. And it is a real thing. It is, and it's hurtful to us, the comments that can happen. And so,
But don't let it be hurtful.
shake it off.
They can
Shake
only
it
hurt you
off.
if you allow them
it.
to.
Allow it.
Don't give them that kind of power.
No, exactly.
Don't give people that kind of power
Exactly.
over you.
That's right. You are making empowered decisions. You're fully capable. And if there's some areas that you've never dealt with before, I tell this to people. When we're parents and our kids are learning how to walk, we cheer on every step that they make. We're cheering on these toddlers learning how to do something new. But as adults, to be honest, we expect them to be perfect the first time, and we criticize if they don't get it right the first time. We don't cheer on the beginner adult stepping into a story or a new job. We're assumed to just know how to do it all. And I think that's hurt us, and it's one of those beliefs, and we can put it on ourselves to say, I should know more. I should be further along. I shouldn't, why am I still crying about this? I thought he's been gone for 8 years. There's things hidden inside of us that takes the right combination for it to release itself. And so our emotions are actually neutral.
And they'll never go completely away.
No, they won't. No, they won't.
They will never go completely away, but it's okay. Back to the analogy of the child learning to walk. When my son was learning to walk, and he'd be running and playing whatever, and he'd hit the ground hard and look up at me for my reaction was safe. Good job. He'd get up and walk away. If I said, "Oh, honey, are you all right?" and picked him up, then he started bawling.
Thank you.
It's our response.
Response.
Our reaction, our response. And if someone says something to you that hits you wrong, that's hurtful, say, "Well, that was kind of a hurtful thing to say. I don't know why you had said that." And call them on it, because they don't know it.
They don't know.
They don't realize it. They're trying to help you, but they don't know it. And if you're with someone else going through this journey and through this big transition, which it is a huge transition, and they hit a bump in the road and they start crying, or they start getting frustrated, I have a friend, and I'll start laughing at her. And she'll look at me, and I'll start laughing. I said, "Can you see yourself right now? Do you see your face right now?" And we turn it around into,
"Thank you.
Okay.
Lighten it up.
Lighten up.
Yep.
Lighten it up a little bit. Don't make light of the situation."
That's
I'm
right.
not saying make light of their emotions and their feelings, but it gives them permission to feel that way.
Yes.
It's like when you're watching people perform on stage, a group of singers. If the singers are having fun and they're laughing and they're enjoying themselves and they're into their music or whatever, and they're enjoying their performance, then that gives the audience permission to enjoy
it too. Exactly right.
If you're sitting there like a bump on a log, stiff as a board and scared to move, then that's how your audience is sitting. So if you've got someone who is having difficulty, and they have a response, it's okay to respond to it. It's okay to, they need you to respond to it honestly. If it's a laugh, or if it's just listening to them, but you've got to let people feel. And you don't want them to crawl down into a hole. You don't want them to feel too sorry for themselves, too bad. It's okay for them to feel bad sometimes. You don't want them to get caught
Stuck
up in
there.
that and use that as a crutch.
Right.
It's not a crutch.
No, it's not.
It's not a crutch. There's only one crutch in this life, and that's your Bible. But you want to be there for them, whether it's saying you're safe. That's so good. You're safe.
That's so good.
Or help pick them up, or sit back and laugh at them and say, "I couldn't have done that if I'd have tried."
That's right.
It's okay to do that with them, because they will understand your response,
and it gives them more life to keep going. Actually, these responses, laughter, it's good for the heart. It's good for the soul. Even if you're kind of laughing at them for the moment, like, can you believe we're actually here right now having this discussion? I mean, the reality of like what's happening, and that is really, she didn't use this term, but I've had it shared, a metamorphosis. There's a metamorphosis happening right now in your life, and you are no longer that worm, and I'm not even saying you ever were a worm, okay? But whether you know it or not, there's a new butterfly inside of you that is wanting to get out. And there's a season in that chrysalis season, it's tight. There's a season of dormancy. There are things that you've kind of got to, for lack of a better way to say it, go dark. You got to go dark on some things. But guess what? Darkness is not what's coming out of it. There's a new and improved version of you that's coming out. And some people like to call it a phoenix. There's different bird terms, but metamorphosis, I think, is just, it shows that there's phases to your growth process. And some of it there's a shedding, there's all of these different layers. And you may feel like, I don't even feel like myself anymore. That's a good thing. That's a good thing, because I use the term I'm becoming.
It's just a different version of you.
Yep.
And that's okay. It's maybe a version
Good,
you
bad,
haven't
or we're not labeling good or bad.
It's a version of you that you've never seen before, because now you've been through a different process.
Yep. You've never been here before.
And it's going to change you in some way. And that's okay. And it's okay to be mournful. You're going to do that at times. It's okay to have a good time. It's okay to laugh and have fun.
That's right.
And go out and say, I had a blast tonight.
That's
I
right.
had the best time I've had tonight in years.
That's right.
It's okay. And it doesn't, everybody does it at their own pace. Some people might do it within a week. Some people might take a month, 2 months, 2 years.
That's right.
To feel comfortable. I still don't go out in a whole lot of crowds, parties, and things like that. If it's a crowd like a movie theater and I'm there with one person or something, then I'm okay. Or a concert. I went to my first concert last week.
Wow.
After over 2 years. I was with one close friend, another widow. And we had a blast. We had a great time together. Good. But then there was hundreds of other people there. We weren't with them. You might not feel comfortable in the same crowd you were in before.
That's right.
That's okay. You may get there one day. You may decide, no, not for me anymore. I'm going to go with a different crowd, a different group, a different focus, a different something.
Right.
Whatever that change is that happens, it is going to be a change. There will be a change one way or another. You might go right back to the same group, the same things you were doing, and everything might fit right back in well. And that's good too. But don't be afraid of change. Don't worry about the change. Just take it as it comes. You just have to take it all as it comes. Take it slow. And again, primarily my biggest concern is that you take it slow. Take it slow and write it down. Like I say, at least 12 months. And for some people, it could be 2 or 3 years. Just take care of business, take care of whatever the minimum it is you have to do, and let your body figure it out. Let your head, your heart, your mind, everything work together until everything starts working together again.
That's right.
It's not working together right off the bat.
That's right.
That's okay.
That's right.
You've been hit by a tidal wave.
I felt like a bus. So if you've been hit by a bus, I kind of, we'll finish up here. This has been so good. But since I've walked through surgery, I can say, they say it can take your body a year to fully heal from a surgery. Well, guess what? Grief and loss is heart surgery. You had heart surgery, and heart surgery affects the rest of your body. And so that selfishness, you choosing on yourself is self-compassion, is self-care, and it is critical to your recovery, and you allowing yourself space to get to know your new self.
There's a chemical change that takes place. There's a change in every cell in your body, a chemical change that you're not in control of. And you've got to allow that to take place, and you've got to allow that to settle down. That's the reason for your brain fog. And it's your heart, it's your head, it's every bit of your body. And you're recovering from a surgery and an anesthesia like you've never seen before.
That's right.
And you've just got to give yourself the permission, the grace, and the time.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed this. I think she has to come back again for future conversations, because this is just tip of the iceberg of the wealth of knowledge that Susan has. Thank you for your information. See us next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.